Hi guys, welcome back to story time. I hope you enjoyed the previous video, and today, as promised, we are going to read chapter 1. I can't wait to get started. Okay, let's go. The Runcible Spoon. Zam Sofia woke up early and climbed out of bed, careful not to disturb the other apprentice bakers of bakery number 9, who were still fast asleep around him. It was the day before the Grand Duchess of Troutwine's tea ball, and Zam was too excited and nervous to stay in bed. Today they would bake for a tea ball tomorrow. All 12 bakeries in the city competed for the honour of making the most delicious treats for the ball. If anything went wrong, again, after last year's disaster that put bakery number 9 at the bottom of the heap, Zam and his friends would be sent home in disgrace. The thought of his father's disappointed face was too much to bear. No, Zam thought. He would do anything he could to make sure that his baking was perfect. In the corner of the attic dormitory, his best friend Langdell, the goat boy, was gently snoring. Beneath the flour sack blanket, his hooves twitched as he dreamed of chasing blue butterflies through the summer pine forests of the western mountains. In the other corner, the two shellac sisters clutched the comfort shawl they shared. In the cots in between, the gnome boys from the grey hills slept soundless and still, 5 to a blanket, their small grey tufted heads just visible. Looking out the window, Zam could see the golden roofs of the palaces glittering in the early morning sunlight. He gazed up at a billowing cloud and made a wish. "To bake the best gingerbread ever," he whispered. Cloud horse, far from view, make this wish of mine come true." Zam took his apron and cap from the hook and crept out of the attic, leaving his friends to their dreams. Zam ran all the way down the stairs to the basement, opened the door to the Flavour Library and stepped inside. This was his favourite place. He loved how precise, tidy and ordered everything was here. He smiled to himself. With everyone asleep upstairs, it was the perfect time of day to practice without any interruptions. Shelves lined the basement walls from floor to vaulted ceiling. Looking up through the glass paving stone, Zam could see the shadows of feet walking overhead as people passed the doors of bakery number 9. The shelves around him were stacked with jars of all shapes and sizes, each clearly labelled. Zam selected the jars he needed, opening each one in turn and taking pinches of the powders they contained. Carefully, he placed the spices on little squares of baking parchment, which he folded neatly and placed in different pockets of his apron. Satisfied with his choices, Zam crossed the stone floor to a large chest of drawers set in an alcove. He opened a drawer labelled Index of Crusts and selected one with crinkle-cut edges and memorised the baking instructions written in small lettering on the underside. For a crumbly texture, short, intense mixing and slow baking in a quiet oven, Zam read. The memory of the calm, reassuring sound of the head baker's voice filled his head, as it always did when Zam read his recipes. For a more robust biscuit, easeful mixing with broad, generous spoon and a short, fierce bake in a busy oven. Broad, generous spoon, Zam repeated to himself, returning the crinkle-cut crust to the drawer and closing it. He looked up and was about to select one of the wooden spoons which hung from the hooks in the ceiling when he trod on something. It was a large spoon he hadn't noticed lying on the flagstone floor. "That is so careless," Zam muttered, picking it up. The spoon was broad and long-handled, carved from a single piece of wood by the look of it. Zam turned it over. It was a slotted spoon, full of small holes, with 3 large ones near the base of the handle. "Easeful mixing with broad, generous spoon," the head baker's voice sounded in Zam's head. "Perfect," he said, wiping the spoon on his apron before slipping it into a pocket. He selected a favourite battered old book from the shelf, The Art of Baking. "There you are," he said happily, and climbed the back stairs to the kitchen. An hour later, the other apprentice bakers had been woken by the 6 o'clock gong and were filing in, putting on their caps and rubbing the sleep from their eyes. Balthazar Bobab, the head baker of Bakery No. 9, followed them into the kitchen smiling. "Good morning, apprentices," he said cheerfully, peering over the top of his half-rimmed spectacles. "As you know, the 12 bakeries of Troutwine are baking for the Grand Duchess's tea ball tomorrow, and we all have our parts to play." The head baker smiled again, a little ruefully this time. Bakery No. 1 is doing the first tiers. Bakery No. 2 are doing the second and third tiers. Fillings are being produced by bakeries No. 3, 4 and 5, while No. 6, 7 and 8 are baking pastry shells and meringues. Bakery No. 10 and 11 are fruit, cake and turnovers, and Bakery No. 12 is making floating islands. Balthazar Bobab took a deep breath. This means once again Bakery No. 9 is picking up the crumbs. The apprentice bakers began to mutter. It wasn't fair. They had tried so hard, but they weren't being given a chance. I know, said the head baker. It's not ideal, but after last year's cake collapse and exploding eclair incident, Bakery No. 9 has a lot to prove. But that wasn't our fault, protested one of the gnomes. The last head baker didn't pay off the League of Rats, said Langdell, the goat boy, stamping his hooves, and they ruined everything. Nothing was proved, said Balthazar gently. I am head baker now, and things are different, aren't they? Zam and the other apprentices nodded. It was true. Bakery No. 9 had changed since Balthazar Bobab had taken over. No more bullying, tantrums, or random punishments. The kitchen was a happy place, and everyone was respected and baking beautifully. It was just as well. A year ago, after the disaster of the last tea ball, Bakery No. 9 had almost been shut down and everyone sent home. If Balthazar hadn't joined them from the fashionable Bakery No. 12, the apprentices would have no future. None of them wanted to let him down. But what about the rats? Asked Langdell anxiously. Let me worry about them, said the head baker, doing his best to sound cheerful. After all, we have heard nothing from the rats since I arrived. Meanwhile, you have baking to do. We will be making the crusts as well as gingerbread and some spun sugar decorations. And at the tea ball itself, Balthazar cleared his voice. Even he couldn't sound cheerful about the next bit. Bakery No. 9 will be doing the washing up. The apprentice bakers groaned. Langdell and the Shellac sisters are on short crust pastries, Balthazar instructed. Gnomes are on glazed pie crust. Zam, are you confident to bake the gingerbread and help me with the spun sugar? Yes, head baker, said Zam excitedly. I've already been down in the flavour library. Baker's pet, muttered Langdell. Balthazar gave the goat boy a stern look, but before he could say anything, an unexpected sound silenced them all. In the shop, the doorbell had rang, and now they could hear the scratch of claws on the floorboards. I smell a rat, said Langdell. Okay, so a couple of things happen in this chapter. So Zam finds a mysterious spoon. If you watched the introduction and if you were paying attention, the old lady made a wooden spoon from the forever tree and requested that the bears take it to Zam. So that's the spoon that he probably finds. And they obviously get a visit from one of the rats who we know are one of the enemies of magic. They don't like magic because they want to stay in the city and they don't want to be sent back to the forest. So that's the first chapter is obviously on Zam, and then I wonder what the second chapter will be about. Stay tuned and I'll see you guys tomorrow for chapter 2. Bye!